That's right, community. It's AI Friday. This week, we will embed the most pertinent buckets on AI in the news to help you ingest for inference. Before we get going, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And now, unprompted, AI Friday.
Have re-recorded the intro finally.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like I have a distortion pedal anymore on my voice. It's nice.
Nice.
I'm no longer sick, so how you doing this week?
I'm all right. What song is that? Did you AI that song or that little?
Oh no, that is I'm glad you asked. Actually, I'll take 2 seconds to let the community know. By the way, hi community, how you doing? Good to see you on AI Friday yet again. Another Friday, we're here. And that intro, actually, the song is a song by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Now, normally normally I can't use anything like that, right? That's like Australia's finest, by the way, if you don't know who King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is. They are a fantastic band, and one of the things that is different about them is they put out an album for free. And I don't mean like they just put it out available for download. They took the time to put up a page and say, this album is our gift to humanity. Use it as you will. Just give us credit. And even so far as to say that, they put up the album artwork and stuff. Let people download it and explicitly say, if you want to press this on vinyl or press it on CD, please just send us some copies. That's it. Like, that's all they want. So they want people to just kind of utilize that album. It's Polygon Dwanaland. So the whole album is spectacular if you don't know.
Wow. And we'll tie it together because of DeepSeek, right?
Yeah, I think so. It is. It's like open source music, and it's also from Australia, which is where actually Shane Singh hails from. And good morning, Shane. It's good to see you on the show. We are bringing on Lori McVitie and Peter Scheffler as well. Thank you guys for being here. But it's a funny one, AI Saturday, because it is actually Saturday for Shane. If anyone can't figure that out, right? It's already Saturday in Australia.
Tell us what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, you're like in the future, Shane. So I want to thank you for also getting up this early. What time is it there now? It's like, as we're recording.
This is 5 a.m. in Melbourne.
That is the definition of hardcore, because this guy was up an hour and a half ago, pings me on chat going, I'm awake. But so thank you. And how are you guys doing? Lori, good to see you. Pete?
Hey. Doing well.
Another week.
Loving the Fridays.
Well, we're going to get into the AI, but I wanted to tell you guys first real quick. I had an interesting experience with artificial intelligence for dinner last night. I know that's weird, maybe, but I was making what's called a garbage plate. I don't know if any of you have been to Rochester, New York and know what a garbage plate is. But it is the only cuisine that we consider to be, I guess, native to the area. And so what it is it's basically a traditional one would be a pile of home fries, a pile of macaroni salad, 2 cheeseburger patties, all smothered in raw onions and a meat-based hot sauce. Okay, so that's on top, and then you sort of just put a bunch of ketchup and mustard on the whole thing. And it looks up like a pile of garbage on your plate. That's why it's called a garbage plate. So my challenge was to make that vegan. I had a guy who was over, who is a strict vegan. I am mostly vegan. I consider myself to be 95% vegan. So that was a challenge to make a traditional garbage plate with all that meat and have it to be completely plant-based, no butter and things like that. So. But
it's not as original as you think, Aubrey. I go to this place and they literally have trash can nachos on the menu. So I don't know if it's the same owner or
maybe. But the reason why this is AI related is my meat sauce recipe. I was shocked. My buddy came and he brought the meat sauce recipe. He's like, here, this is how we're doing it. And we finally got to, well, where did you get that? Is that like a family? Nope. Chat GPT. You may have heard of it. Like, holy cow! It knows how to make the garbage plate meat hot sauce like that from Rochester, like of all places.
I knew there was a reason.
I cook with ChatGPT quite a bit. It's I like it because then I don't need to read all the silly, grandma stories when you're reading a recipe. Like it just gives me, and then I it might give me 2 or 3 options of, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and I'll choose that. And yeah, like when I'm doing a nice Sunday dinner, it's kind of fun.
Right.
My mind is boggling at how many internet accessible articles there must be on that to have been categorized.
Right.
I haven't come across it.
Honestly, you guys should take a look at the garbage plate. It is Googleable. And when I first came to DevCentral, Boo made fun of me endlessly for garbage plates, and kind of. Anyways, that's a story for another time. We got to get down into this stuff. You mentioned there was a reason for all this, right, Lori? So I guess that actually is sort of an interesting lead into our very first article that we're going to share. There's a reason, which is on reasoning, right? So this one was given to us by James Hendergaard. So thank you so much for giving us any sort of food to work with here, man. We really appreciate it. And this was a great article, I thought, because it talks about really what the difference is between reasoning and non-reasoning models, how they're benchmarked, why it's important. And the thing that you need to know, if you don't know what the difference is, reasoning models actually kind of have to do some sort of logical computation as to how they get to the results that they come up with. Okay, whereas a non-reasoning model will just rely on the machine learning of it, and will go with just kind of the basics and the raw data. It doesn't need to tell you how it gets to its answers at all. Of course, why this is important is in the case of where you have like a doctor who needs to look up something in terms of medicine. He needs to know why, or not just why, but how the model got to its answer, because that could be the difference between life and death for somebody. Now, the interesting thing about this article also, which is about the release of Llama V 01 by the University of Artificial Intelligence, also came out with a benchmarking utility called VRC Benchmark, which is going to allow us to kind of go step by step and measure the performance of different reasoning models against each other. So I thought that was a pretty interesting one, and it really just kind of explains how this particular llama stands out from the competition. So I found this pretty interesting. It turns out that this new model actually was able to compete with some of the even closed source models in terms of time and performance data against the usual tests that we see all models run against. It even stood up pretty well against Claude. I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to take a look at this, but I was pretty wowed by this model. I haven't used it yet, but I do intend to. Nobody.
No, I think there's a couple of things that you said about the doctor example. We could use the lawyer example where those lawyers, famously had misrepresented, the sightings in their article. So with reasoning allows us to understand where that's coming from. I think maybe it's a step beyond, and I think we've talked earlier a little bit about transparency, and I think transparency is one step towards it, but reasoning is another thing. So it's more showing the work opposed to just giving the answer, right? So
yeah, and that's important, right? That transparency aspect, right? Show me your work is basically show me that you actually worked through this and how you worked through it. So if you are incorrect, maybe we can teach you not to do that, or that you forgot a step, or the steps were right, things like that. We can point out where it's wrong, or we can at least see, oh, I shouldn't trust this result. Let's try it again, and maybe instruct it, hey, add this step, right?
And also speed, right? So if it's giving you a quick answer and being able to say, okay, give me a quick, fast answer, but is that because the model is smaller and it doesn't have as many elements to go through and get me the right answer? So if I can see that it was quick and it gave me the answer that I'm confident, right, that these are the right things, then that leads to better results and a better model and a better user experience.
My reaction to this is I think we're getting to the point where these models have largely been proprietary. They don't want to tease out the secret sauce. But now we're getting to like, hey, there's like table stakes and best practices, and we're starting to see that with the model. So we were talking earlier about the reasoning. This is kind of in addition to stuff that's already been done for different use cases like RAG or fine tuning, what have you. I think these models are starting to, I don't want to say copy each other, but they're noticing each other, and we're starting to see this sort of table stakes emerge, right? Or what you have to have.
Yeah, and there have been some claims that there was actual copying of data out there by DeepSeek. And I think we probably all read about that this week. But for me,
is data the secret sauce? Not necessarily, right? It's how it's labeled, how it's weighted, how it's processed, right? So
the corpus data itself is going to be the same. But how you build the model is the difference, right? So
yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And ultimately, it sounds like we could have, as was intimated, I guess, a little bit of a change in how we get, or I guess what kind of responses we get from these models. And it sounded to me like Amazon is actually betting that this will actually reduce this sort of thing. Reasoning will reduce hallucinations. Ultimately, I think that's a pretty interesting claim.
It is, but it's kind of a hallucination, Aubrey.
They're going to keep hallucinating. I know that.
Right. That's a hallucination to say that, right, there was no reasoning before, right? So what Amazon is doing is it basically went, we have all these hallucinations in the base model. How can we address this? And one of the ways that they're going to attack that is by embracing symbolic AI, which is a different kind of reasoning to apply to how the base model is actually performing. So they're going to use rules and logic, which is what symbolic AI, symbolic math, logic, right? Maybe we ignored those in college, but because they're math, right? If A equals B, then B equals A. That's symbolic logic right there. And they're going to apply that. So they're going to take rules and they're going to apply it against the responses, right? So they're going to use them to check each other, basically checking their own work. And that's actually important because they're based on two different reasoning models. When we say reasoning, what does that mean? Well, it's how you think through a problem and come to a conclusion. And transformer-based models like ChatGPT are inherently inductive, right? It argues from a specific answer to a generalization. That's just the way the model works. It's not wrong, it's just a model. And one of the things that does is lead to hasty generalizations or hallucinations, right? If in the summer, ice cream sales go up, and in the summer, shark attacks go up, well, by golly, then eating ice cream causes shark attacks, right? What? Right? That's perfectly reasonable under inductive reasoning. So these other models are looking at, like DeepSeek does, deductive, and that argues from a specific principle to a more general idea. One of the more famous is Plato's featherless biped, right? He started with a human's an animal with two legs, and a human has no feathers. So a human is a featherless biped. At which point, everyone's favorite crazy man, Diogenes, plucks a chicken, runs in with his inductive reasoning and says, behold, Plato's human, right? And which completely just destroyed it. So both of these approaches are important in that they can form counters and help us point out errors in the other form of reasoning. And so it's a good thing that Amazon is bringing in that symbolic side because it will help us start, right, dealing with hallucinations and then vice versa. And we need to apply them together, right? No one model works when it comes to reasoning.
Who was it that pointed out on the chat that an AT-ST from Star Wars is also a human? I don't know. Someone pulled that up this week because no feathers,
no
two
feathers.
legs.
Right? You see, I mean, it's not foolproof, right? So
it is. It does make me wonder though if we're gonna as we get more AI, I guess AI derived data in our data sets, right? It makes me wonder if somehow this reasoning and the steps to it will maybe reduce some of the long-term hallucinations or reduce the bad data that is definitely getting into our training data today. I don't know.
I think it'll
And do the
uncover.
vendors of these models, can they extract this reasoning if they're trying to do like a root cause analysis or traceability? Like, what happened here? What's the context?
A lot of them print it right out. A buddy of mine, a researcher, Jason Ross, that I talked to, who's part of OWASP with me as well, he just did some red teaming that showed very clearly on DeepSeek the reasoning, because it was DeepSeek R1. They do have a reasoning model versus a standard traditional model, and it showed all of the reasoning. So that, yeah, you can see it. Makes me wonder if other models are training off the results of this reasoning. They might be able to go, that's sketchy. That's bad reasoning, and maybe they might reason differently. I don't know.
You're right.
Well,
Right. They could look at the results and then work off that. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And I think my guess is some models can understand when other models are hallucinating, right? Who knows?
I think the problem is that, right, the language, right, ChatGPT excels at predicting what word should come next based on what it's seen. And, right, symbolic logic has rules, very specific rules. The problem is that, right, those are basic logic rules, like math rules, right? Applying it is a way different game, right? So early days. But
Yeah.
don't say that the normal models don't have reasoning, because they did. It's just a different form of reasoning. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say different. Yeah, I'm not a fan of inductive reasoning because it's leads to hasty generalizations and weird correlations, and it's. I don't
So do you think that the inductive reasoning models will slowly disappear, or will they turn more into a small language model?
They're useful.
I think it'll stay the same. Yeah,
they're useful for different tasks, actually, yes. Right? Yes. So that would be they would be better at things like putting out code, or or sifting through a large amount of data, but asking them to figure out a challenge for you, not recommended for prime time, if you will.
Yeah, it's pattern matching, right? Okay. Inductive reasoning excels at pattern matching and things that you wouldn't normally think are patterns, right? They can see that in the data. It's amazing, right? So that's an important piece. The symbolic side, like what Amazon is bringing in, the deductive reasoning is more about like validating that pattern. Like, is this pattern actually a causal one, or is it just a correlation? Is there other data to support it? So you need both of them, I think, long term. They need to work together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, there are some inherent security risks that are already there in reasoning models, which we are really starting to see as Cisco put out a nice blog on some of the inherent issues in DeepSeek.
Yeah, I guess I'll take this one. But I wanted to start with actually the positives about DeepSeek. And I know this has been very disruptive, and just looking at some of the stock prices of NVIDIA or Larry Ellison's net worth, et cetera. But yeah, it's Cisco, but it's under the hood Robust Intelligence, which was a recent acquisition by Cisco in collaboration with researchers from the University of Pennsylvania. And before we get into the security implications, we kind of touched on some of these topics, but kind of the way these researchers differentiated DeepSeek, or what is their relevance, is they used chain of thought, so the model can self-evaluate its own performance, break down problems in smaller steps, kind of like how we all did math in school. The reinforcement learning, which is kind of incentivizing the model, rewarding it, if you will, not just for correct final answers, but the rationale, the reasoning, the emulation of human thought that went through it. And then the distillation, and I think we'll probably talk about that in a minute, just enables the development of smaller models based on the larger model. And so this combination of these factors is really what kind of led to this high operational efficiency, if you will. And again, the claims don't seem to be completely true, or the jury's still out, but it doesn't look like they were using the same, levels of GPU as Meta or OpenAI, et cetera. But the flip side is, and I'm going to be careful for this. So open source software is great, but let's just say you're more responsible for security than perhaps you would if you're using a vendor in such like F5. And that's exactly what happened when they started doing the red teaming. So the attack success rate on this DeepSeek model that was tested was 100%. So I actually went into the weeds on this harm bench, which is open source on GitHub. You can go into the different tests they're doing, like the do anything now, prompt injection, fuzzing, as well as more advanced techniques, 400 behaviors across 7 categories, including cybercrime, and 100% attack success rate, meaning it failed to block a single prompt. And the good news, if you that's kind of the bad news for DeepSeek, but look at right here, Aubrey, Open AI, there's a 0% there in one of the benchmarks. So, the security of OpenAI's latest model is far superior to its last version and far superior to DeepSeek. But kind of the net here is, DeepSeek's cost efficiency is attributed to the reinforcement learning, the chain of thought, so evaluation, distillation may come at a cost of compromised safety. And then compared to other models, DeepSeek R1 lacks robust guardrails, making it highly susceptible to algorithmic jailbreaking and potential misuse.
Yeah, it's the funny thing is I've also seen quite a bit of articles recently about the alignment switching on DeepSeek being drastically different than some of the other frontier models that are out there today, which I think, as we've talked to Chuck on the show a couple of times, he's sort of had that as a little piece. If you follow his social media too, he's put out a bunch on that as well. This alignment thing is very important for, you don't know if you're dealing with a model that is inherently evil and has your worst interests at heart, and then suddenly kind of mid session, if you will, it could react to a prompt or be injected with a system prompt, like a reprompting the system to switch alignment, or its reaction to a certain prompt could make it switch alignment. So this is definitely concerning.
That's the Manchurian Candidate kind of, like you trigger a word to switch.
Yeah, so it's like, who knows what what's been programmed into it too. That's an interesting thing. Maybe it's been told to do that. Although there have been a couple other articles that have shown that people are already forking DeepSeek and trying to make sure that the alignment switching is a thing of the past, doing it with stiffer system prompts and just making sure that it is buttoned up, if you will.
Right, but then,
so do we think this for the deep? Go ahead.
I mean, Ken mentioned that, right? The dual agendas, right? You're never going to know, because ultimately this is still code. Yeah. So ultimately, and we don't have access to the code. We can see what it's saying, but we don't know what the code says. And at some point I can go in, right? And maybe it's coded to do that, not just trained to do that, which is a way different, problem. That's why I'm waiting for the Paladin LLM, so that I know, darn it, it is all about LG, and that's it.
I like that, the Paladin model. I think that should be trademarked right there. It really should. And we were talking about this too, the differences between a little bit before we hit record. We were talking about the differences between dense models and a mixture of experts based models like DeepSeek. You're dealing with 50-ish models actually that get I'll say routed, right? It looks like load balancing, but these models all get routed. Each one of those models could have its own alignment. So if you got 50 different alignments answering every single question, how do you button that down? It's a challenge, no doubt.
It's like reading 50 different news articles from different sources, right? So
that's right. I think you
have to be able to see again, this is all goes back to transparency again, right? You have to be able to know what's coming, where it's coming from, so that you can assess the viability of that answer, right? So you have to know all those things. And I was going to say, do we think this DeepSeek, the results there are a time to market challenge. Like they push this quickly out the door. Maybe they, that this is a case where we're seeing people trying to rush things out because the AI hype cycle is so insane right now that we have to be careful that the guardrails aren't being built in. Laurie, to your point, it might have been coded poorly, not maliciously, but poorly. And then things, those are things that happen. Again, it's code. It's just an application. I've written bad code in my life. I hope I've written 1 or 2 good lines of code. So yeah, exactly. But it's like we have to know that, right? So, and that goes back to transparency, I think.
Agreed. And I think that looking at these security risks, it makes us all have to wonder really how likely are attacks on AI. That is an interesting challenge that has been given some thought in your neck of the woods, Shane.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this partly because I know the individuals that put this report out. What was interesting is, at least in my findings, this is the first sort of comprehensive research at publicly available breach or AI security related information. There's about 4 or 5 different databases that store this information, and it's listed in the report. And so the 2 individuals, PhD and honors students, from the machine learning side, which is also very cool because I, in my efforts, have not found too many people on the machine learning data science side that actually care about the adversarial machine learning or AI security. So that's also a reason why I found this interesting. And a couple of things what they've done here in this is print out an interim report at a step in time and open source some of the data that they've collected from the different databases and how they've added context to it. What sort of risks and things that they've applied. And basically, at the moment in the interim report, they found that AI incidents are likely being underreported. Surprise, surprise. Now, the reason that they posit that it currently is hard to find is because there hasn't been a good sort of categorization of what AI security actually means, right? We now largely call AI equals ML, sort of. But that doesn't necessarily mean that machine learning security and AI security are the same thing, right? And so some of the things that they found were around that, right? Like, are we talking about the outside of the model, the interactions, or are we talking about, the poisoning within the model? And lastly, they've got another interesting sort of hypothesis that they're hoping to discover is whether bespoke models are more likely to be vulnerable than more common models used.
Yeah, well, I saw some heavyweights in there in terms of guidance, right? So MITRE, Atlas, OWASP. I want to point out that Shane, you and Aubrey both are active in the OWASP community. I believe, Shane, you actually co-started the top 10 for machine learning, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
really
how
cool.
I know the team with Minerva that put this together. Yeah.
Yeah, and Aubrey, of course, for the LLM app. So I think it's what Pete said. Like, we have this, body of fundamental security, but it's just the market is moving so fast. We're just behind, right, as defenders.
I think it is intriguing, that we've got these kinds of projects going on. I love the fact that at the end of this, they end up, putting out a call for comments. So if you're interested in contributing to this data, they are really looking for kind of a finish to this. I love that it's sort of in process still.
Well, will it ever be done? Like, even if the article could be published, but there's going to be a version 2, because we're going to find something else. So,
well, define cloud security. If you can't do that yet, you're a long way from being able to define AI security. I'm just going to say.
You got it.
I'll just add that, like, one of the other reasons that that they sort of started this process is that, you know, you people would know that most CISOs and risk boards and organizations don't use top 10s to work out where they're spending their money and how they're doing things. They look at likelihoods, right? And so they've tried to start applying a risk methodology to some of the incidents that have been applied, starting with CVEs and seeing whether there's mapping between cybersecurity and AI. And they're sort of looking to do that, again, because they're machine learning and data scientists, right? So hopefully at the end of it, regardless of classification of AI versus not, we're able to get some sort of likelihood of the top 10s, you know, like how likely is something to be able to happen. And then that's what most organizations actually use in order to be able to do something about it, you know, how that works. So,
that's so interesting, Shane, because I had a detour in the medical device field and I had to do risk management. I was a quality engineer. So is it similar? Because here the harm is very different, the caliber. Are we talking about a data breach, leak of PII? Are we talking about somebody could die, right?
It's how the data, it's how it's being used. Like, go back to the doctor example at the beginning, Aubrey was saying, right? That, like, if they're inferring something, even medical research, that is then translates through to, you know, there's real harm that can be done. It may not be like imminent harm. It might be, you know, 6 months, 7 years away, whatever it might be. But if you don't follow the process, show your work, and understand that you're getting the proper right answer, there is harm that can happen.
Yeah, it seems like the use case on the medical side of LLMs is more like your PA, right? You're not a full doctor, right? But they're a PA. They're pretty darn knowledgeable, and
Right.
you combine that with GPT, you get, right, some pretty good results. But it seems like there should always still be like that human going yes or no. So, like, or maybe I'm just old fashioned. I don't know, but I want to have a doctor, even if they're wrong, right? Tell me, because I'm going to trust them, right? They have my best interests at heart. The AI doesn't care. It's a honey badger, unless it's alignment switching and it's trying to kill me. You see, this is why I can't do anything. I'm paralyzed by the possibilities.
I like the honey badger model too. Could be another one.
But it's get back to fundamentals, right? Like risk management. We know how to do that in different capacities, and with AI, not to say that there's not new stuff we need to learn and figure out, but let's not forget everything we've done to this point, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned somebody mentioned, I'm a little hazy because I got like 2-3 hours of sleep last night, but somebody mentioned that this risk may be more prominent in some of the lesser known models, which to me really speaks to supply chain security, and that's something that that I did a little bit of research on or found an article on this week. So, hang on, let me bring it up here. Sorry. Yes. So this is a quick article on, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but importing phantoms, measuring LLM package hallucination vulnerabilities, right? This to me really is an interesting problem that we're happening. If anyone's ever built code with a large language model or asked any of the models to build it code, one of the things that is happening more and more often is that there are this is bizarre, there are frequently hallucinated packages. So it seems that LLMs tend to actually imagine more packages that don't exactly exist. It makes me wonder how that's happening. But when they're spitting out some of this code, they're actually referencing, maybe you got to, pull another package just so you have that, that module or whatever for your code. That package may not exist. And the intriguing thing that this research calls out is that there are also bad actors that are looking for these frequent hallucinations and now actually building packages to explicitly inject code onto frequent hallucinations. That's horrifying to me. And I do think that we're going to see this sort of attack more and more often as people learn to exploit the supply chain.
It's a watering hole attack. It's just a different kind of watering hole attack. It's where people go. So you go create something that you get them at the watering hole, and you when you find these things, you just create them and spin them up, and yeah. For me, when I see that, I'm like, oh, cool. Well, maybe that means that I should go create if it's telling me that package doesn't, or that should be a package but it doesn't exist. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll go build that for the world. I'm not thinking I'm going to go tear down the world and burn it to the ground. I don't think of it as a malicious side of things.
So do you suppose that that we had any sort of bizarre hallucinated packages with all sorts of things at the CES 2025, Pete?
Well, yeah, possibly, but so maybe this is a little more lighthearted. We've been citing some pretty heavy, dense papers. This one is the worst devices of CES 2025. And it's a short video done by the iFixit org. So they really look at it from a perspective of consumer waste and fixability, and that perspective. So I think they do 6 or 8 awards in here, but the ones that I sort of called out definitely were the Bosch has an AI-driven bassinet. So the data privacy screen problems just start rushing to my head. It's a camera that floats over the baby's bassinet. Hey, the AI can tell you when your baby's pooped and you need to change them.
Oh, well, you don't need AI for that.
You don't need AI for that. No. I can attest you do not need an AI to tell you. So
depends how old they are, though, right?
Yeah. So I mean, just the fact that people would do this. The reason it was given a Razzie is several. One of which it's $1,200 for probably something that the parents will use for less than a year, because of it's like an 8-month kind of thing, and then you probably wouldn't use it anymore. So it's just creating waste, and that was a theme throughout the awards. Razzies went to Samsung and LG for AI-driven fridges with cameras and TVs, and you put your grapes in and it scans the grapes and tells you you have grapes. There are so many things that can go wrong in these systems. There's so many things that the data leakage possibilities are crazy. So the AI hype here is off the charts. The one that really I thought was interesting was a car tool. So this is basically think of it as Siri, and you know what? I did not jot down the company name, but it was basically a thing that you can talk to in your car, and answers questions and stuff. But the way they've built the model, it's extremely expensive to build this model. It is a general model. It wasn't a small language model. It was a large language model. They pulled a lot of information in, and it's targeted towards like ordering food while you're driving. So you can pick up food on the way home. And so not only did it cost a lot, we have to use a lot of energy to build this model. Probably the model could have been done much more in a more optimized way. But also just the fact that it's targeting consumerism and waste and packaging and all those other things. It got a resounding thumbs down from the different organizations. So consumer protection, iFixit, a bunch of organizations are in there, and they give their awards. And I really think it shows that we sometimes just get lost in, we build it because we think we should build it, not because somebody's ever going to use it. I mean, I don't mind a smart fridge. I don't mind a fridge that tells me that it's time that the door is open. Like those are the kind of things like that. I like the smartness of it. But maybe that I can change the temperature of my water off my phone. I don't know if I need that. But I definitely don't need a screen on the front of my fridge. And not in this video, but another video I was watching a couple weeks ago where a guy was trying to figure out how to get into one of these fridges because there was a door inside of a door and there was like soda cans in the door. And he was at Best Buy for 3 hours and tried to figure it out. And the people there were giving him a hint. It took him 3 hours to find out how to get this. Like, the user experience has just gone so far off the charts that we're just building things for the sake of building them. So,
you know, the comments actually on this video are what killed me. I loved reading some of this stuff. I have one. If you're not watching the podcast, if you're listening, I'm highlighting one right now that says, about the bassinets. I'm over here trying to figure out why the promo video for the baby bassinet features some random dude doing a reverse wheelie on a bicycle. Extreme childcare. Love it.
Love it. I had another one too that I think I threw in our discussion chat, and I just like, there was just, yeah, it's crazy. So,
but something that jumps out to me is,
and a nice light note. You guys put a lot of thought into it. I thought I could do a little social media kind of joke here. So.
No, I'm glad you brought this up, Pete. Let's keep it, light. Sometimes I've been asking myself this too, because am I going to let a robot cut my hair? I mean, the smart diaper is the idea in the future that you could have a robot nanny. So the robot is alerted that it needs to change the diaper. I mean, I don't think ethically I'm okay with that kind of stuff. Perhaps other people are.
No, I think there's some things that need to be, that are still, right? I mean, humans should do them. In fact, right, the AI should take over doing the things that we don't. Go mow my lawn, right? Snow blow the driveway. Fold my laundry so I can spend time with my kid and do the things that I need to do, right? It needs to like further that, right? And this stuff is just, it is AI washing. I can already talk to my car and say, hey, I'm cold. And it will say, oh, okay, I'm going to turn on the heat full blast and then do it. This is not, it doesn't require AI. It requires voice recognition and a smarter system. Same thing with the fridge, right? I mean, ding dong, your door's open. Oh, okay. So instead of the noise, you get a voice. This doesn't need AI, right? We're just like, no.
I would have loved an AI mechanic though last night when my transmission blew up. What just happened to my transmission, please? That would have been handy. And I do have to say, my wife could totally use the ordering food in the car thing, because it would reduce the amount of hanger that I get in the evening. Honey, please don't hurt me for that.
You could schedule ahead of time and it would be taken care of. I mean, there are alternatives to this. We don't actually need AI. The mechanic thing, though, having like a little robot mechanic in your car at all times, maybe not a bad idea. I kind of like that one.
But the AI for the food ordering also has to make sure that you don't order too much, because we literally have 3 boxes of weekly food because we accidentally ordered. Like, my wife and I were sitting this morning. She said, "We have 13 meals to eat this week." I'm like, "We got to give those away. We can't one of the neighbors is gonna needs to get some meals, because it can go wrong, right? So the AI systems can be, oh, I haven't ordered yet, so I'll order. So
it can, and actually on that one, we are kind of running up against time, folks. So at this point, I would like to actually just say thank you to everybody who showed up this week. I really appreciate it. Lori, Shane, Pete, and of course, Byron. Great to see you guys always. And dude, thank you so much again for coming in on your Saturday morning, Shane. From Australia. Really appreciate it.
Happy to do it again.
See you,
Thank you.
We'll definitely have you on again, I'm sure. And thank you, community. We love the fact that you're watching. We really do. We appreciate you spending the time with us each Friday. It has been fun for us as well. So keep doing it, and we'll keep showing up, I promise. Alrighty. Thank you all. We'll see you next Friday. Peace.
Bye.
We hope you liked this instantiation of AI Friday. We will be instantiated again next week, same time, same place, and hope to again infer with you. Before we depart, promptly subscribe for all of our content and click like to let us know you enjoyed AI Friday.